Hey guys, so I am making a tutorial on Trapcode Form today, which will be how to turn a picture into particles, as I uploaded a beta preview last night and some people asked me how do I do that, because I followed a tutorial that is quite overcomplicated and takes you a bit further than where you actually want to go with it, so I thought I would make my own tutorial for it, so here goes. This is only also for After Effects, and you need to have the Trapcode plugin and have Trapcode Form especially. Okay, so what you want to do is, if I close this, you want to have, at the moment, I've got 3 compositions open. I don't need the displacement map at the moment, so I'll create that later. You want your main composition, it's got nothing in it at the moment, you want your footage 1 and you want your footage 1 mask. So what you want to do first is whatever picture you want to put into the composition, you put it into your footage 1 mask first. Go to the footage 1 mask once you've done that nicely and drag this in as well. So once you've done that, you've now got the same picture in there. Don't drag the actual picture into the footage 1 mask, because it's saying it's got another composition in the mask there, which is the same composition. And then you want to go back to your main, and you've got your footage 1 mask now. So for me, because I've already got one open apparently, I don't need that one anymore. I'm doing multiple tests with this. Drag this one into your main composition, create a new solid, grey solid that'll be, and then you find the plugin, which is Trapcode Form, you apply that, and as you can see you've got this kind of small box here thing, and you want to change the size for that. So you go to the base form and you need to change it so it suits your composition settings. So it'll be, you want these individually, so it'll be 2560 for me and 140, because that is my composition settings. You want I think you want the particles the same in here. I think I'd change that to 1. You don't really want many in the Z space. So, and if I follow my notes now, you change the particles in X to 260 and then go to 120 for the Y-axis. Then you go to particle and well, we don't want any feather in this, so you change the sphere feather to 0. The size can go anywhere between like 2 and 4. I tend to go probably about 4-ish, so I can see what I'm doing. Perhaps maybe 3, I might adjust that later. And then what we do is we go to our layer maps. So we first go to the color and alpha, and the map over XY, change it to RGBA. XYZ layer should be the which one mask. And so now you've got this kind of weird looking version of our picture. And turn off the footage 1 mask, and so you've got an even weirder looking picture. And so the next thing we want to do is we want to make a duplicate of the footage 1 mask. So if I close the effect controls for now, just press Ctrl D, or if you're using After Effects on a Mac, use Command D, and we'll rename that to footage 1 displacement map. Actually, that's a bit of a better way to put it, so that's easier. So if we open that up, and then what we want to do is add a tint to it. So if I select this and put a tint on it, and I think I'm not sure if I really need to adjust the cancel, I don't want to do that. So if I change this so it's less black and less white, so there's a bit less contrast. I don't, considering the picture I have, I don't really tend to do this much. So if we go back into the main and we drag the displacement map underneath it, you can now see we've got a bit more colour in it. So what we want to do is we want to go back to this, which I'm going to rename to Trapcode Form. And I'm going to go back to the effect controls. And this time we're going to go to displacement. This is where it gets quite fun. Map over XY. And we want to choose the displacement map. So now we've got that. That looks pretty weird, right? So now we can fiddle about with this. This is where it gets quite fun. So that seems to be a bit of a problem for me out of the way. I don't know if this works for anyone else, but if I'm having that problem, I just literally drag it out of the way. I've never had that really before, so this is where we start to do some kind of cool things. For me, this is what I did yesterday within my area of Trapcode Form. Look, I've got quite a nice contrast of red, white and blue there. I might take that down. So if I put this back to 0, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add a camera. So that's quite a nice camera. And then I'm going to add a null object. And make the null 3D and just parent that so we can see what's going on. So if we have a look at this now, we can control the trap code. What my favourite thing is to do is if you have sapphire especially, you can just put glow on it and it will make it look a bit better. It will make it look like there's less particles. So I'm hoping this will work. It doesn't like to work with my trap code very much. It should work quite nicely. So if you look, it just looks a bit more smooth, etc. I did this a lot with the example I was doing yesterday. So what I'm going to do now, if I go back up to the strength, I'm going to do something quite cool. The strength doesn't matter what direction you want to go in. So if I make it like that, it looks quite cool, right? 3D. And put motion blur on because I'm just going to do a bit of animating for this and take it quite far. So I'm going to make this quite strong for now. If I put it directly to 10 seconds and then reduce it to about, I don't know, 100 maybe? Perhaps a bit less. So it looks a bit more like the actual Pokemon. The idea yesterday for my video was that you was kind of supposed to guess which Pokemon it was. So I've got it like that now. But I'm not quite finished yet. I'm going to add some finishing touches with the null. So obviously you've got the Z rotation, Y rotation, X rotation, and with this you can do a lot more. So you can see it's going everywhere. You can change the angle, point of view, everything. Kind of looks like a shooting star at the moment. So if I even put it to something just quite random, that's quite cool. If I put the X to something like this, and Z possibly. something like that, and we'll see what happens basically. So what's that going to look like? That looks like that now. So if I turn that to 0 and just reset all of these to 0, and then we can have a look to see what's going on and just put these into easy ease. There is actually a shortcut you can use to do that, but I have a Mac that runs Windows, and I'm using this on my Windows, so my shortcut keys don't work, which is absolutely great. So I'm just going to RAM preview that to see how it looks. I tend to just let things roll. As you see, I have a red cross around my screen at the moment, which I'm about to sort out, because I know this is an unregistered version of Trapcode, so when it renders it will give a red cross. Also, I tend to stick to images that have higher contrast in them, as in they have multiple colours and they're not just black and white, because that way you get a more prettier picture. As you can see here, I've got lots of blues, lots of reds, kind of some even yellows over there I think, and some whites as well of course. Of course, this is the way that I personally like to make these Trapcode plugins, and also the kind of image I used is a bit more of a 3D image that has quite a lot of texture and contrast to it, so that also helps in making the picture look better. And if you have plugins such as Sapphire, then it can also reduce how much of the particles you can see in it. It makes it look a bit smoother. So yeah, if you look at that, and then of course one of the many things you can do is you can adjust the scale, so you can just zoom in, zoom out. In this case, zooming out is apparently zooming in. I like to put it at about that. And put it back to 0, so that looks quite nice. Yeah, don't put it back to 0, otherwise you'll get the error I just get, which is the error about it not having a base start, basically. So that looks quite nice now. Obviously, it's completely up to you what you do with the particles. It's completely up to you what you do with the particles. So and for the final thing I'm going to do is, well, not the final thing, I'll probably go on to experiment, see on what else I can do with this, because I haven't tried really, is obviously you can see this kind of red yes, I applied the wrong one, that's why. Don't apply the wrong one. This obviously has affected the outcome a little bit. I shouldn't think it will do. Just made her look a little bit more orange. To get rid of that cross, if you've got a unregistered version, just use the colour key on it and it will colour key out. It won't make much of a difference, it's not very big. So now I have this. Obviously it's probably not best to have it on full. Mine just happens to run quite nicely when it's using full at the moment because I've only got this open and not my audition video that I'm using. And obviously if you play around with the Trapcode, you can change the particle type from sphere to something like that, cloudlet, streaklet, anything. If you change it to a cloudlet, obviously it gets brighter, you can see more of the particles. If you change it to a glow sphere, it's got more soft contrast there. I'm probably going to stick with glow sphere, to be honest. If you go to the final result, you can change. If you go back to the particle, you can look at the opacity random. That changes how many you want to see, etc. So I'm going to put out about 50 and experiment with some of the other things that are on it. Obviously there are some things that will reduce the amount of particles that you can see on here to make it a bit more of a softer image. Again, bear with my After Effects, it tends to lag. Okay, so that's going to have to be the end of it because my After Effects has crashed, but it won't usually do that. But that is how you make the particle transition and effect using Trapcode Form. So, hope you like it.